Okay, so we are going to be looking at the Unit 8 Quiz 2 review. We did cross out quite a few of them, so 1 and 2 we are not going to do. But let's go ahead and let's look at number 3. So if we look at number 3, it says you choose a crayon at random from a bag containing 4 green crayons, 1 red crayon, 2 blue crayons, and 5 yellow crayons. What is the probability that your crayon will be blue? List your number as a fraction, a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth, and a percent. And we're actually going to just do the percent to the nearest whole number. Okay, so if I want a blue one, I know that there are 2 blue crayons out of all of my crayons. So I have 2. And then I also want to know how many crayons I have in total. So I have 4 plus 1 plus 2 and then plus 5, which gives me 12 crayons total. Okay, if I want to reduce that fraction, I'm going to get 1 over 6. Now, it does tell me it wants it as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth, so that's 2 decimal places. So I'm going to take 1 divided by 6, which gives me 0.1666, and the 6 is just going to keep repeating. So if I went to my second decimal place, or second number past the decimal place, I'm going to look at that third number, and since it is 5 or bigger, I'm going to round that 6 up to a 7. So we are going to have 0.17. Okay, and then since we already rounded our percent, or I'm sorry, our decimal to the nearest hundredth, we can go ahead and move that decimal place twice to get my percent, which is going to be 17%. So there's a 17% chance that I pick a blue crayon. Okay. Number 4, we did do some of number 4 together as a group today in class, but we did not finish number 4. So we're going to look at A through D. So for part A, it says, what is the probability of getting a 6? So I listed out all my possible options on a 12 equal sides section of a spinner. And if I just want a 6, that means that only one number out of all 12 numbers is going to be what I want. So the probability of spinning a 6 is going to be 1/12. Now, if I would like an odd number for part B, so the probability of getting an odd number, I'm going to look for all of my odd numbers, and I'm highlighting those now. So my odd numbers, there are 6 of those. So we have 6 out of the total amount of 12, which does reduce to 1/2. Okay. Then part C says we want a number greater than 8. So we don't want 8, we want numbers that are bigger than 8. So we have 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so there are 4 numbers greater than 8 out of 12, which does reduce to 1/3. Okay. For part D, it does want to know what the probability of getting a number less than 9. So we're not including 9, it's all numbers less than 9. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So if we look at that, we have numbers 1 through 8. So there are 8 possibilities out of 12, which does reduce to 2/3. And again, if you don't know how to reduce these fractions, that Desmos calculator does do that for you. Okay, the next one that we did not do was number 6 in class. So let's go ahead and look at number 6. And with number 6, it says, if someone spun that same 12 equal size section spinner 100 times, how many times would you expect the results to be an odd number? So we already found that the probability of an odd number for part B from number 4 was 1/2. So we're going to say 1/2, and then we're going to multiply that by the fact that we are going to try to spin it 100 times. So 1/2 times 100, if you put that into your calculator, it is going to be 50. So we are expected to get an odd number 50 times out of 100. Okay. We are going to skip 8, 9, 10, 11, and we're going to look at number 12 now. So with number 12, we are going to end up creating a box and whisker plot. It says during the 8-game regular season, a running back ran the football for, and then it gives you a bunch of different yards, okay? So that's his yards he ran in each game. So it says for part A, order the data set. So we're going to order the data set from smallest to greatest. So his least amount of yards was 68. So that's our smallest. And then we went to 82. And then we went to 95. 98. 105. 111. 125. And then our final one was 155. Okay, so that is our data ordered from smallest to greatest. That's what it means whenever it wants you to order your data set. So from there, I always like to find my minimum and maximum first because those are normally my biggest, those are my smallest and my biggest number, which are normally the easiest to find. So my smallest number is going to be my minimum, and that is 68. My biggest number is going to be my maximum, and that is 155. Okay. So we need to find the median, quartile 1, third quartile, all of these things that we have not found yet. So I'm going to go ahead and start by finding the median because I want to find that middle number. So if I start crossing off on each side of my data, I end up with two numbers in the middle. I end up with 98 and 105. So if I end up with those two numbers, what I have to do to find the median is add them together, which equals 203, and then divide that number by 2. So I'm finding the average of those two numbers, which does give me 101.5. If I have that, now I can look at the beginning half of my data. So that's the 68 through the 98. And that did not create a pretty, I don't know what's going on. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at that first half of my data to find the first quartile because I'm going to find the median of that data. So if I cross off again on each side, I end up with two numbers again in the middle of 82 and 95. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add those together, which gives me 177, and I'm going to divide by 2, which does give me 88.5. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm looking at this side of my data, the upper half of my data, and I'm going to cross off on each side until I reach the middle. And again, we have two numbers in the middle. We have 111 and 125. So I'll add those together, which gives me 236. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 2, just like I have the others. So if we divide that by 2, we get 118 for my quartile 3, or my third quartile. And don't forget here that the median is also called Q2. Okay, so that's your second quartile. The mean is the average. So that's whenever we add up all of our data and divide by the number of data points that we have. So we're going to take 68 plus 82 plus 95 plus 98 plus 105 plus 111, 125, and 155. And that gives me 839. So I have 839, and then I have to divide that by the 8 different data points that we have. So we're going to divide by 8. If I divide that by 8, I get 104.875. The mode is the number that occurs the most. And in this case, we don't have any numbers that repeat. So they all only occur one time. So there's actually no mode here. We're going to say no mode because none of these numbers occur more than once. Our range is always our maximum minus our minimum. Our maximum we found was 155. And our minimum was 68. So we're going to subtract 68 from 155. And we get 87. So that's going to be our range. The inner quartile range is our Q3, quartile 3, minus our Q1, so our quartile 1. Our quartile 3 was 118, minus our quartile 1 was 88.5. So I'm going to take that 118 and subtract 88.5, which gives me 29.5. Once we have all of this information, we're going to go ahead and create our box and whisker plot. And in order to create our box and whisker plot, we need the minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, and the maximum. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some numbers here. I'm going to start at 60, and I'm going to go up by tens. I think I'll have enough room. I'm really close. So I'll go ahead and extend this just a little bit, and we'll make this next one 160. Okay. All right, so from here, I'm going to put a point at each of the different numbers that I have highlighted at the top. So the minimum was 68, so I'm going to be close to 70. Then we had 88.5. Again, I'm going to be close to 90 here. 101.5 is going to be closer to the 100. 118 will be closer to the 20. I'm sorry, the 120. And then 155 is going to be right in between 150 and 160. So I have all of my points on the outside. So my first to my second, and then my fourth to my fifth. Let me redraw that. We have our whiskers. And then in the middle, we have our box around those middle 3 data points, or middle 3 points here. There we go. And then I'm going to draw a line right at the median. So that is my box and whisker plot. on the quiz, you're going to be looking at box and whisker plots, and you're going to want to be able to know how to find the different numbers based on looking at a plot. You will not have to actually create one of your own. All right, we have one more thing to look at. We have 24 through 27, and that'll be all the questions that you do have to do. Okay, so the table below shows the results of a survey of high school students who plan to attend college. It shows whether the students plan to attend a 2-year or a 4-year college, and whether the students plan to attend an in-state or an out-of-state college. Okay, so it has all the totals on the outside. It says what % of students surveyed plan to attend an out-of-state 4-year college. So we're not only looking at out-of-state colleges, we're looking at 4-year colleges as well. And so we're going to follow this over and follow this 4 years down. And where they meet at the 12 is going to be how many students plan to do that. So we're going to have 12 out of the total amount of people, which is that lower right-hand corner of our table. So we have out of 50. Now, since it wants it as a fraction, we're going to go ahead and divide 12 by 50. And that gives me 0.24. And I'm going to move that decimal place twice to get 24%. So my answer here should be B. For the next one, it says, what is the probability that a randomly selected student plans to attend a 2-year college? And it says, state your answer as a fraction. So this time we're only looking at students who plan to attend a 2-year college. So we're not looking at whether they're in-state or out-state. So we're going to just look at the total number of people who plan to attend a 2-year college, which is 22. Out of 50. It's always that lower right-hand total that we use as our denominator. So if I have 22 out of 50 and I reduce that, I'm going to get 11 out of 25 as my reduced fraction. From there, it says for 26, what is the probability that a randomly selected student plans to attend an in-state 2-year college, so in-state and 2-year college. So I'm going to follow this in-state over and follow the 2 years down, and that meets at 18. So we have 18 over that 50, and it says state your answer as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places. 18 divided by 50 gives me 0.36. For the very last question, it says, what is the probability that a randomly selected student plans to attend in-state? So we're only looking at our in-state kiddos. So if we're only looking at in-state, we're going to follow that all the way to the total of in-state students, and that's going to be 34. So we have 34 out of the total of 50. And this time it says state your answer as a percent, and we're not going to round it to the nearest tenth. We're just going to give it to the nearest percent. So we have 34. Let's see, 34 divided by 50, and that gives me 0.68. And that is going to, if I move my decimal place twice, that's going to give me 68%. So that should be all of the questions that we went through in class and the questions that we did not go through in class. So there should be no other questions that you have tonight for homework. If you have questions, please email and we will try to get back to you as quick as we can, okay? Have a great day and don't forget about our quiz tomorrow.